Hello, sweet friends, and welcome back to the Quilter's Candy Shop, where you will find sweet treats for the discerning quilter. Can you believe it? We're halfway through January already. That means it's time to get started on our spring quilting, sewing, and crafting. And of course, there's no better place to start than with St. Valentine's Day. Today, I have an adorable table topper from Sandy Gervais of Riley Blake. This deliciously sweet collection is called I Love Us, and Sandy has created a simple yet lovely table topper using her creative panel and coordinating prints. This pattern is available for free on the Riley Blake website. Just go to the Free Patterns tab and then the Quilts Projects menu. I'll put a link for the pattern in the description below. Well, before we start cutting and sewing, if you'd like to make this cutie for your sweetie on St. Valentine's Day, you can find the panel or the full kit available in our shop at www.thequilterscandyshop.com. That's SHOPPE shop.com. I'll be happy to provide a printed copy of the pattern for free with the purchase of one of our happy little kits or the I Love Us panel. This topper finishes at about 40 inches square, so it's the perfect size to toss on the table, hang on a wall, or lay across the arm of the chair, wherever you want to add a little charm or pop of color for St. Valentine's Day. Now, let's get started. As always, when you're working with a printed panel, you need to verify the size of the panel before you get started and make sure your measurements aren't different from those given in the pattern. From here, we're going to fussy cut 4 10.5-inch squares from the panel, centered on each of the sentimental motifs. Once those are cut, set them aside. Now, in this case, the panel itself is almost exactly on the inside of the red line, 10.5. But to make sure you don't get it all crooked, I've got a little trick I like to use if I'm trying to fussy cut and get something centered. I use the painter's tape method, and it works every time. So here's you probably can't see it, but here's the 10.5-inch line. And I'm going to put this straight edge of the painter's tape along there. I'm not going to put it right on the line. I'm going to leave about about a 1/16 of an inch, not a whole 1/8 of an inch. So I like to leave a little bit of a space. Maybe you can see that. There's just a little bit of a space right there, so you can see where that line actually is going to fall. So the first thing I do is mark the size I'm supposed to have. So in this case, it's 10.5. So I'm just going to put this right across like that. So then when you go to line up, I want this edge inside the red, this side inside the red, 10.5. And of course, all panels, when they're printed, they're running through at a very high speed, so they don't always print exactly square, and that's why this is important. My 10.5 runs right along the red line here, and you can see it's over the red here, and just under the red there, and it runs perfectly along here. So I'm going to call that straight. This panel printed a little bit crooked, so there's a bit of a red border showing inside the 10.5-inch mark, but don't worry about it. As long as that line is within the seam allowance, it's not going to show, and you'll have a good and square block to work with. I think that looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I'm only going to cut this square. I'm not going to run around the other ones because fussy cutting's a little bit more precise than that. So pardon my elbow. There we go, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to take this and flip it around. I'm going to fold this section out of my way, and I'm going to have just this corner. I probably should have pressed this first. So do as I say and not as I do. And press out your panel so it's nice and flat. But we're already in the middle of this, so we're going to just keep going. We know these edges are right because we just cut them. Now, this is why you need to see that line. because you need to line that up exactly on the line, and if the painter's tape is covering the line, there's no way to line it up. I think that's all good, and now I can cut the rest of the other part. So across here and across here. Okay, there's one. I'm going to do the other 3 of the 4 we need, and I'll be right back. If you're joining our Stash Busters Challenge of 2025, this is another place where you can use a few reds and whites and pinks out of your stash. All you need is this panel, and then you can collect a minimum of 4 reds and 1 pink, or up to 16 reds and 4 pinks for a scrappier look. You'll also need a yard of light background, half yard of print for the border, and 3/8 of a yard for the binding. None of the fabric requirements are over a yard, so you might be able to find these in the stacks of your stash as well. If you're using full width of fabric, you only need to cut 1 3-inch strip. But if you're using a fat quarter or a fat eighth, like I am here, then you will need to cut 2 3-inch strips. And of course, we're going to start by squaring it up. Now, I know there's a lot of you out there who are really good cutters, and you could stack your fabrics like this. I've already got this edge on this one straightened. Stack these like this, and then cut your 3-inch strip. As you can see, stacking your fabrics can save a lot of time, but if you're a beginner, I recommend cutting your strips individually in the beginning. Okay, and that's the last one. Here's handy tip number 2. If you're a confident cutter, you can probably layer 2 or 4 or even more strips on top of each other. And then you can cut more layers at once. The first thing we need is 4 5.5-inch by 3-inch rectangles. And we already have our strips cut 3 inches wide. So now I'm going to cut 5.5. So there's 2 on one strip and 2 on the other. So that's my 4 in one cut. And I've done 2 prints, so I'm halfway done with that. Then the other thing you need is 4 3-inch squares. So I'm going to line up my 3-inch squares. Just like that. Now I'll do the other set. So now I have 4 layers of each print here. Line up the line across the bottom, get it nice and square. The thicker the layers you have here, the more pressure you have to use on your ruler to keep things from shifting. So depending on how strong your hands are, should determine how many you have stacked. All right, so now I need the 5.5 and the 3-inch squares. And by stacking it, it saved us some time on cutting, and everything is all stacked nice and neatly in our piles. Next, find your pink prints and cut 2 1.5-inch strips width of fabric. We're cutting 2 1.5-inch strips, the full width of our fabric. We need 2 26-inch long strips. For best results, open up your strip and give it a press to get rid of this cross seam, and then cut at 26 inches. Now I'm working in a small space. Instead of measuring 26 inches, because that's so long that it actually is wider than my 24-inch ruler, I'm going to fold this in half, and half of 26 is 13. So I have both strips here. I have them folded in half, and I'm going to measure from this end. Here's the 13, here's the fold. You don't want to measure from the wrong end or you won't have the right size strips. All right, and then I'm going to cross cut, and now I have two 26-inch pieces. And lastly, your light background. You're going to need 4 2.5-inch strips width of fabric. We're going to set the balance of our background fabric aside for the moment, along with our border and binding fabrics. There's more to cut from the background, but we're going to come back to that. We're going to cut these the same way we did the pink ones. I've got all 4 of my strips layered here, and I've folded it in half. And now I'm going to put the 13-inch mark down here on the fold, line along here, making sure everything's nice and straight, and cut. Let's start assembling the pieces. First, we're going to sew a 3-inch background strip on both sides of the pink center strip. And make sure you've pressed your seam allowances in towards the center, towards the pink. Next, we're going to cross cut these at 3 inches wide. And I have just laid these as straight as I can on the board, and I'm going to cross cut them both at the same time. I'm using my square to line up along the center line of the pink, and I'm going to slide this down here as far as I can because we don't want to waste anything. There we go, and I'm going to cross cut it at the same time. I don't normally do it this way. I laid them there and I thought, why can't I cut those at the same time? So I'm going to give it a try. We'll see at the end if it works. Now, I just have to make sure this line stays straight across here and that these are going straight across as well. So 3 inches. Until I have a total of 16 strip units. So I will quickly straight across here, straight across there. There's 4. This one went a little crooked on me, so that's okay. I can just fix it. Just like that. And this one was fine. Another way you can cross-cut these 2 strip units for efficiency is to lay them on top of each other, just a little offset, so you can feel the seam allowances nest. I am feeling this across, and look, these are perfectly straight together. So I think it would have been fine if I'd have kept going, but let's just try this and see if we like it any better. Okay, did anyone keep track? Now I have to count. 14. One more. And 16. Okay, we've got those done. Gather all of your 3-inch square pieces, and you're going to add a red square on one side of the pink strip unit. So we're going to add one there, and then choose a different one for the other end. And you're going to make 4 of these exactly the same. And then you're also going to make 4 with the other print, like this. So you're going to make 4 of these and 4 of these with 8 of your pink strip sets and all of your red squares. All right, and there's our strip sets. And you want to press the seam allowances out towards the red, so the red is not showing up on the white. And essentially what you have made are the side pieces to the squares. So we can go ahead and sew those on right to the sides of the sentiment blocks. The next step is to make the top and bottom. And the pattern doesn't have you sew these on yet. They have you make the top and bottom separate, but I think it's good to sew these on first, because then you can make sure when you make your tops and bottoms, you're going to get your pieces in the right place. So you're going to need all of your 3" by 5" rectangles and the remaining strip sets, and they go together like this. So once you get these sewn together and these sewn together, you can add them to the top and bottom and your block will be complete. Okay, and here's our blocks, and you can see how adding that top and bottom made our nice corners. So make sure those match up when you're putting those together. Just going to set these over here. Off camera, I went ahead and cut the sashing and the border. You're going to cut 6 2" width of fabric strips, and then subcut 2 that are 35 inches long, 3 that are 32 inches long, and 2 that are 15.5 inches long. The nice thing about this is, of the 6 cuts, you don't have to sew any of these together. You just can cut them right off the strips. And the same with the border. You don't have to piece the border together. You can cut the border pieces right off of the strips. So for the border, these are cut at 3 inches wide width of fabric, and then you're going to make 2 that are 40 inches long and 2 that are 35 inches long. Like I did before with the strip sets, you can keep these folded. I just kept them folded in half and then cut them at the halfway mark. So for example, the one that's 35 inches, I cut at 17.5 from the fold. So you can figure that out. It's very simple. And so I have those ready to go. And I also went ahead and cut and prepped my binding. So all that's left now is to lay out and finish your top. So the first thing you're going to do is put the 2 blocks together like it's a row. Whether you do that across or up and down, that's up to you. I'm going to work across because I think it looks nicer with the strips. So you have 2 15.5" strips, and those go in between the blocks like this. And you have 3 32" strips. So when you get your 2 rows together, then you can put a strip at the top, a strip in the middle, and a strip at the bottom. And then all that leaves is your 35" strips, and clearly those go on the side to make a floating border. So I'm going to sew these 2 together and these 2 together, add these strips, and then the floating borders, and then we'll put the last border on and we'll be done. And here it is. I think this turned out so cute. I decided to make another one to send to my sister so we can both enjoy a sweet and happy holiday table this St. Valentine's Day. For my backing fabric, I have chosen this wonderful flirty floral that comes from the I Love Us collection. With all of these darling hearts and flowers, I think it'll be perfect for the backs of these table toppers. Now, all you scrap busters out there, don't forget to process your scraps from this project into your scrap bins or boxes right away. I've put all mine in this Ziploc bag because I keep mine separated by project. But whether you are a color separator, a size separator, or a trim it to fit separator, just take the time to process your pieces now so they don't stack up on you. I hope you all enjoyed the I Love Us table topper panel quilt tutorial. You can find all the supplies you need to make one for yourself in our shop at www.thequilterscandyshop.com. That's SHOPPE shop.com. You can pick up a kit or a panel, or if you have some of your own ideas, try this Red Hot Hearts Valentine's Value Pack. It's 10 red, white, and pink fat quarters full of hearts and love. The regular price on this is $35, but it's on sale for only $20 with the promo code HEARTS. Now don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you know the next time we post a sweet project like this one. Now, go sew something sweet. Bye!